Hello champions and future champions. Hello Chessmood family. GM Gabuzyan is here with you and we're beginning with our daily lesson. On the position that you are seeing, it's white to move. Before going into further explanations, I will ask you to pause the video and think how to play here as white. We have a light squared bishop and some of opponent's pawns are fixed on the light squares. We can try to play a4 in this position, weaken this pawn chain and create a weakness on b5 square. And the topic for today is a4, a5 or h4, h5 moves when we're trying to weaken some pawns or some important squares. We will see some examples when using this trick we're trying to obtain big benefits out of position. Now white played a4. If black here is taking on a4, after rook takes, fixed and isolated pawn on a6 is gonna be lost in a few moves. After a4, if black goes rook to b8, which is logical defense, we take, and after capturing back, rook a5 is here. We are increasing the pressure. With a4 move, we're either opening the a file and creating weakness on b5, or as you saw, we're creating weakened a6 pawn for the opponent. And here, after queen d7, white goes queen c5, adding another attacker to b5 pawn. Now we have 1, 2 and 3 attackers, and the opponent has only 2 defenders. So we're winning this pawn easily. Let's now go ahead and see our next example. In this position, it's white to move, and I'm very excited to say we are watching a game of ex-world champion Fischer Robert James. I know most of you are big fans of this strong chess player as well as I do. Now let's try to play as Fischer did in this position. Pause the video and try to find white's idea. Probably you're already guessing that the idea is to go with a4. But now, if we go a4, and after capturing back we go rook a1, black can try to go rook b8 now and attack this b2 pawn. Would be a little better if instead of playing a4, as it happened in the game, to play rook a1, wonderful move. From the central half open file, rook is just going to a1 square, but idea is so strong that it's really worth it to take rook to the edge of the board. White now is preparing this a4 advancement and creating further weaknesses for black on the queen side. Here black played f6, in some occasions trying to prevent this f6 advancement for the white side. Now we go a4. In the game, here black blundered, playing rook to b8. First of all, I will ask you to pause the video and figure out why is this move losing, and then we will go back to logical reactions for the black side. Now, there is a nice opportunity for our queen. Since black played f6, this means king can receive some checks. Oh, suddenly we notice that rook is here on c6. This means we can combine these two benefits, playing knight e7 check, and after queen takes back, playing queen d5. As I mentioned, this is a check, so we are winning the rook on c6. For this reason, after a4, black was supposed to play differently. Let's say if now black takes, and we take rook a4. After rook b8 now, we can go already b4, fixing this pawn on a6. Later on it will be taken with rook fa1. If after rook takes f4, black now goes a5, trying to prevent our b4, we are going rook a1, and after rook c5, white can play something like h3. What is the thing? White opened up the a file on the queen side. Black pawn is fixed on the dark square. Our rooks are making a huge pressure, meanwhile black pieces are defending. Even though black can play something like rook b8, force us to go rook a2, still our pieces are located much better. This rook on c5 is stuck to this pawn protection, bishop is fully out of the game, and slowly white will be improving the position. In some occasions, white can even play b4, exchange these pawns, since black will be left with this very terrible d6 pawn. So either way, white gets a very nice game. If after a4, here black is deciding to keep this pawn on b5 and goes rook to c5, we can capture, and after taking back, go b4 now, fixing this pawn weakness. As you saw in the previous example, our rook gonna get very nice square on a5. So rook c4, rook a5, rook b8, and here white can capture on b5. The thing is that rook on c4 is under attack, and once black is taking back, we can capture on c4. So it's absolutely winning for white. Rook is under attack, and we're having some discovered check threats here. So white is winning. For this reason, the beginning idea with rook a1 was a very strong one, and often in chess we're having such an opportunities. But because this move doesn't look nice, we sometimes miss this kind of important moves. I'm sure from now on you will be checking more carefully these kind of options, and let's now go ahead to see our next example. This time it's black to move, and this example is a little bit different than the previous ones. I will ask you to pause the video and try to figure out how to continue here as black. First of all, let's notice that we have a better position. We have nice d4 square in the center, and we have a better bishop. Why our bishop is better? Because our pawn is on the dark square, meanwhile white bishop is limited by their own pawns. So this means our pawn is safe, meanwhile these pawns are future subjects of an attack. Also, we have a better control over the d4 square, which is a nice outpost. But if we now go knight d4, and after take back with the rook, white can try to play now c5, later on go rook ac1, open up the c file and try to get some game. For this reason, at the beginning, black is playing a5, attacking white pawn chain, forcing this pawn to be moved from the good dark square. Why the dark square is considered as a good one? As it's on the opposite color for our bishops. Now if white takes on a5, it's a terrible pawn structure. We capture back, and after it takes, rook a5. Pawn on a3 is now isolated. As well, pawn on c4 is now fixed. Meanwhile, we have very nice pawns. We can go rook to a8 and attack both of these weaknesses. For this reason, after a5, white has to go to b5. But here it comes another difference. We can go knight d4 and rook d4. And what is the thing? We forced this pawn to go to the light square. White is not having c5 option anymore. We are getting this perfect outpost for our queen. White pawns on the queen side are terribly fixed, and with this bishop, good control over d4 square, control over d file and c5 outpost, black's position is winning. With a5, we provoked white to go b5 and created such a weak square. So this doesn't mean when you are making such a move, you are only looking for a weakened pawn structure. You can also try to weaken some important squares. Let's go ahead to see our last example in this topic. Now it's black to move. We have endgame structure when we have 4 pawns versus 3 on the queen side, and white has doubled pawns on the king side. So we're not pawn up, but basically we are. It's black to move. You can pause the video and think how to continue here. Black goes a5. I'm sure it's not a surprise for you. If now white takes, we take back. Pawn on a3 is hanging. If white goes a4, we can go b5 and this pawn is being lost. Or if after rook a5 white goes bishop to c1, we go rook a4, fixing this pawn on the dark square, attacking another one, and after bishop b2, we go b6. Followed by c5, black is creating connected passed pawns in the center. And if after a5, white goes rook b1, we can take, and after take back, go king b6. After king e2, we go rook a4, and bishop d2, forced to protect the pawn. We go king b5. In a few moves, with a5 move, black opened up the a file, got a very nice square for the rook, fixed pawn weakness for opponent, Nice square for the king, and once winning this pawn, black's position is absolutely winning. We'll be creating two connected passed pawns again on the queen side. This was the last example of our topic. Let's go ahead when you will receive your homework. Today, we learned that sometimes with a4, a5 or h4, h5 moves, we're opening up the file, creating pawn weaknesses for opponent, and sometimes using some weakened squares. This can be a very powerful tool if you use it properly. Now, in this position, it's white to move, and you can share your thoughts and ideas in the comments section below. GM Gabuzyan was here with you. Thank you for subscriptions, likes, and sharing this video with your friends. We appreciate it a lot. See you next time during our next daily lessons.